What's a subtle sign that someone is a good person but doesn't want to show it? Had a teacher growing up that came across as very strict and standoffish, gave off this air of learn the material or fail. In reality though, he would answer any questions you had, even if it was being repeated, was incredibly patient, and would stay as late as he needed to in order to make sure the students understood the material. If a majority of the class bombed a test, he would address it with the class to understand what went wrong, and would redo the material if needed. #X200B, looking at him or just popping by his class, you'd think he'd be a typical hardass, but in reality he cared immensely about making sure we understood our lessons and were prepared for the next year. I've discovered that often what appears to be indifference is actually an internal struggle of, I am extremely concerned about this, but I don't think that it's any of my ducking business or requires my intervention. Well, you just put into words what I haven't been able to for most of my life. They say take your time. I always thought of it as a common courtesy, even if I'm not in a hurry. Like if I'm waiting for a Starbucks order and I have nowhere to really be, when someone says he'll be out in a few minutes, I just say don't worry, take your time, because I always felt it was the polite thing to say. What most people don't realize is that bit of common courtesy shows that you recognize the other person as a human being whose time and emotions also have value. Many people are so lacking in self-awareness and empathy that they simply do not value other people's time. Thanks for taking the time to care. I really appreciate you. Edit. To add to this, we all have our blind spots and we all have our off days. You are not automatically a monster if you forget to be polite one time. The good news is we can learn our blind spots and grow our whole lives if we just tell ourselves to take our time once in a while. I get a lot of when you have a moment when I'm working behind the bar. It shows people see I'm busy and they're not trying to rush me. But that's when I put them first. My mom used this trick on me as a kid. She would say, when you have a chance, can you do the dishes, sweep the floor, load the laundry, and lo and behold, I would actually do it right then and there, being as stubborn as I was. When you're in a group and that one person keeps trying to say something or add to the conversation but they keep getting talked over. Then that other person will look at them and say, sorry person, I didn't catch what you were trying to say, can you repeat it? And make space for the person being ignored unintentionally. That's a real gem. I feel validated by this. When you are having an argument and they actually listen to your point instead of just getting ready to make theirs. Or when they don't insult you as a person as a comeback to your argument. I despise that this has become so normalized, especially in politics or anybody with an audience. It's at least become a good indicator that my argument is solid and they have nothing to counter it. Guy I used to work with was such a class clown, always cracking jokes. Everybody liked him because he was so funny. It was a while before I realized that his jokes were never at anybody's expense. He was kind. There was never anything mean in anything he ever said, to anybody's face or behind their back. Anyway, we're married now. Well, that was a nice twist. They are given a chance to quietly talk bad about someone, but instead, says something good. He'll never tell this her face, but she's a wonderful person and a gifted artist. Probably a boring answer, but I have this friend who I can just tell is really sincere when he asks how I'm doing. I appreciate anyone asking because it's a convenient conversation starter, but with him I can tell he actually cares what the answer is. I have been trying for the last few years to stop, take a breath and be ready to listen to the reply when I ask how are you? To anybody. Including the coffee guy I will probably never met again. Just a genuine I see you human and hope you're okay question. It is amazing how much people open up and make connections when you yourself are ready to. On the other end of it, as the coffee guy I would almost always ask how somebody was doing. The times people gave me a real answer and not just a good, you? Made the day so much better. Regardless of how bad the news vent was, it at least would be a real human interaction. As a retail employee who can't give more than a good, you? I dislike the question. I wish people would give more than that copy and paste answer. I vividly remember once when a customer stated the normal good and then immediately said actually that's bullshit, today sucks, and then apologized for cussing. It was amazing. Admonishes people for being rude to wait staff. I was at a family dinner at a pub restaurant years ago, and my sister was very rude to the waiter because her steak was overcooked or something, really went hard on him, and my brother's new girlfriend, who always seemed a shy and quiet person, told my sister to basically stop being a bitch and that the waiters didn't cook the food, and you're embarrassing all of us, everyone's looking at us, etc. From that point on, I knew she was a good sort. Did the relationship last? She left him for the waiter. I heard he cooks a mean steak. I was at school with a guy who was the king of the cool kids. He was always getting busted for breaking school rules, drinking, smoking, bad-mouthing the teachers and so on. In fact, he did a bit of jail time later, for non-violent low-level drug dealing. I was the uber geek of the school. I didn't get bullied as such, but I remember one time that his cool gang kids were ribbing me a bit too much, and he stepped in and told them to cool it, and a bit later, when I won the school academic prize, he went out of his way to sincerely congratulate me. In fact, a few years later, and after the jail time, he became pretty well known as a TV personality and had his own show, where he was generally lauded as giving the impression of being a really nice guy, which, in this case, he was. Any hints as to who he is? Guy Fieri. More like really cool Guy Fieri. Someone who's always quiet but raises their concern when they feel it's against theirs or someone's will. I can't seem to grasp what you mean by this, but clearly many others do. Can someone reword this for my feeble comprehension skills? I think they mean that there are some people that are quiet and not usually complain or engage in any conflicts, but have unambiguous and uncharacteristic reactions when they feel someone has been wronged. I like these kind of persons as they usually make a difference, especially in work or formal situations. When that guy or girl that usually does not object to things express concern about a situation, it usually gets more attention than the people that are always objecting to things. People who ignore things like accidentally spitting while talking or accidentally farting to not make you feel embarrassed. So the next time I'm spitting while talking and farting all over the place, I shall ignore it so that you folks will not be embarrassed. I'm already feeling like a better person. A person who brings their shopping cart to the cart corral when they are done with it. Why do you guys in America not have the deposit thingy on the handle? The problem is non-existent where I live. Therese one specific grocery chain with them, but yeah, most stores here don't do that. I'm willing to bet that the grocery store you're likely referencing, Aldi, originates in the country the above poster is likely from, Germany. True merit is like a river. The deeper it is, the less noise it makes. Edward F. L. Wood. Helping others for the sake of helping them without expecting anything in return. The person who asks, "How are you?" and genuinely wants to know, giving responses that show understanding. Well, as a Swiss person, I always found it quite confusing when speaking to Americans or when I was there on vacation. We rather just say hello or you have to expect a serious response. I think this is some sort of cultural thing which for some over here is difficult to understand. Can confirm. How are you? Will yield a full conversation. As an American, it's kinda nice that many Europeans give a genuine answer rather than the typical good I'm used to. Doing kind things and not taking credit or posting for internet karma. I had a maths teacher who used to bust my chops. He was fun, but also very temperamental. He'd be silly to a point, then tell you off when you out-sillied his silliness. I was sat opposite a quiet girl who suddenly looked really distressed. She said something to him in a whisper, and he looked down to a puddle on the floor. She'd wet herself. This was when we were 11 to 12, so it was quite a big deal. I clocked this at the same time, and he gave me this look like "don't you dare." He went over to his desk, poured himself a water, then came back and was pretending to peer at her work, before stumbling and dropping it on her. He apologized and made a big scene and told her she could go and get a spare uniform from the office as it was his mistake. I really respected that. I think it showed a lot about his character and care. Wow man, he really went far. Respect.